Well, this is Florence, Italy, and I know many of our members have been here at some point in the past, and so you'll recognize Ponte Vecchio behind me. That's the old bridge that spans two sides of the Arno River and connects this absolutely magnificent city. I've been here a number of times before, and I tell you, every single time I'm just taken away by how beautiful it is, the architecture, all the cafes and restaurants, and needless to say, the museums and galleries.
Florence is one of the most visited cities in the world, and every bit of that attention is earned. But there's a way of traveling through Tuscany that turns it into a literal sprint. The Duomo, then David, a photograph on the bridge, and then back on the coach. You go home having seen a great deal, but you've remembered almost none of it. We're going to do the opposite. It's not about seeing more of Tuscany. It's about staying long enough to venture down those alleys and visit some of those little towns that most tourists never see. I'm Gordon Dreger, founder of Wheel and Anchor. Come join me through this part of Italy. Here's how this trip is going to go. We'll start off with 5 nights in Florence, with the whole Renaissance on our doorstep. Then we'll head southeast to Cortona, high above the Val di Chiana, for another 5 nights. This wonderful hilltop town will be our base for side trips to Siena, Pienza, Montepulciano, and the villages around them. And our final leg will take us up to the ridge at San Marino. 3 nights in a country most people probably can't even place on a map, with the Adriatic laid out below. 3 beds in 14 days, no living out of a suitcase, and because these are old walled towns, our transport often can't even reach the front door. There's a short walk in, and the luggage follows behind. The road slows down as we go. That's not a flaw in the plan. That's the plan. Florence rewards those who know why this city matters. 600 years ago, there was a handful of thinkers here who were paid for by merchants with an eye on how history would remember them. These thinkers reached back more than 1,000 years and restarted Western art more or less from scratch. Nearly everything that followed, in art and in the idea of beauty itself, traces to these few streets. We'll give it the time it deserves. A private guide through the Uffizi, which is a morning that could fill a whole week. And then the Accademia with Michelangelo's David, a figure you have to stand in front of to understand, because a photograph simply flattens what the marble is doing. And then, in the way we prefer, we'll turn everyone loose to find lunch somewhere that doesn't have a menu translated into 4 languages. Part of what makes this work is who shows us the city. Wheel and Anchor lives and dies on the people who show us around. And in Florence, that's Angela.
Hi everybody, I'm Angela and I'm looking forward to seeing you in Florence next year.
Part of Florence's appeal isn't just the beautiful historical center, but of course the rolling Tuscan hills surrounding the city. You can go up to the many villages and explore some of these small towns that are a little bit off the tourist track. And from here, you get spectacular views overlooking the city, the River Arno. You see, of course, the Duomo, the big cathedral sticking out as the main landmark of the city, the Santa Croce Church, and the many, many other buildings that make this such a gem of a city amongst the hills of Tuscany.
Leave Florence and the crowds thin almost at once. The eastern hills are full of towns that were once somebody's, rivals to Florence, small republics, a pope's private project. But then history moved along without them, which is exactly why they're worth staying near. From here we reach out in every direction. Siena, Florence's old rival, where a whole city still organizes itself around a horse race and 17 neighborhoods that have been feuding more or less good-naturedly for centuries. San Gimignano, where medieval families competed by building towers, taller and then taller again, until the skyline came out looking like something we'd call modern. Pienza, a town one pope tore down and rebuilt as his idea of perfection and very nearly pulled it off. Then there's Montepulciano, stretched along its ridge, better known to most people from the label on a bottle than from the place itself.
This is the other main square of Cortona, Piazza Garibaldi. And from here, you have a magnificent view over the surrounding Val di Chiana with the lake in the background.
That valley is the thread. Every one of these towns looks out over the same stretch of country, and after a few days, you stop seeing them as stops on a list and start seeing how they all fit together. And then there's the eating. In this part of Italy, you eat well almost by accident. It isn't a special occasion, it's just how the day is put together. One afternoon, we'll drive out to a family winery between Cortona and Montepulciano, the kind of place where the people pouring are the same ones who pruned the vines. These slopes have grown wine since the Etruscans. We'll taste the Sangiovese and whatever else they're proud of that year, alongside a board of pecorino from just up the road and meats cured in the very same building. Nothing shipped in, nothing far from where it grew, and the quality doesn't stop at the good addresses.
The food was fabulous. I didn't have a bad meal, whether it was street food or in a restaurant.
That matches everything I've found here. San Gimignano has a gelateria that's won world titles, and 2 doors down, a butcher people drive out from the cities just to visit. In Cortona, our evenings are our own, and the hard part is not finding a great place for dinner, it's choosing which one to go to. And then we go up. San Marino sits on a rock above the plain, and this remarkable little hill is in fact its own country. It claims to be the oldest republic still standing, founded, as the story goes, by a stonemason hiding from Roman persecution in the 4th century. It has outlasted empires, kingdoms, and the unification of Italy going on all around it, and somehow it's still here, a nation you could walk across in an afternoon. We'll take the walls with a guide, out to the towers strung along the ridge and along the path between them, where the ground falls away on both sides and the Adriatic sits out on the horizon. Down the slope is Rimini, a seaside town most people think of for its beaches, until you notice the Roman arch at the end of the main street and a bridge that's been carrying traffic for 2,000 years. And inland, Sant'Arcangelo, a town that has never gone to any trouble to impress anyone and is all the better for it. That's where we make our last meal. Not a demonstration, the whole group, hands in the flour, rolling pasta the way it's done here, and then sitting down to eat what we've made. By the accounts I get afterward, it's the day people talk about longest once they're home. So that's the trip. 3 towns that you actually get to know instead of a dozen glimpses from a coach window. A small group of Canadians who usually end up becoming friends by the second week, and enough time at each stop to stop counting the sights and simply be somewhere. Tuscany has never needed any help being beautiful. What it needs is for you to slow down long enough to really get it. Come along with us, and you will. I'm Gordon Drager. We'll see you in Italy.